always say, exactly.
Okay,
It sounds like the conversations you had with the women were about their connection to God, but also kind of demonstrated their connection with God. Like it was a spiritual experience in and of itself.
Right.
Is
Because it's sort of like, it comes back to the daily life, what is your life like, and what, where do you go for support? Where do you go for wisdom? Where do you go for consolation, etc.? And so some of it, was that, and their children, and like working in the church, etc. Because that was the other thing, is that it was very interesting how we were doing it again with all Catholics, and and the like, as like, I mean, like the priests are like the landlords of the like the parish, etc. And so for the women, and yet all the churches in the country were built by the women, especially with Hispanic women, making tamales and and selling them and raising money. I mean, the women are the the ones that have raised the churches, literally and symbolically. And so it was interesting that for the women, like, church was all about community. It it wasn't church about even the sacraments, it was about community. And so the the whole definition of their experience of church, their description of church, was always the people in the community. And it's like the community doing something together, or the community helping someone out, or being helped by the community. But church was very clearly community, and not the spiritual leaders. So that was another.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Were other people doing this kind of work, interviewing people and looking at through a theological lens at the everyday experiences of people?
I don't know, but I would think, that was kind of like the height of liberation theology, and we were developing all the different liberation theologies. And to some extent, I would assume that other, like others were doing some of the work, maybe not, not everybody. So with us, it came like the motivation to do it that way was because our goal was really, if we want to talk about Hispanic women, we've got to bring their voices, we've got to make their voices heard. And the way to do it, is really to create the opportunities for people to talk about their experience.
So you really weren't modeling after somebody else's work. You kind of thought of this approach yourselves.
Right. And also because it was kind of like the only thing we could do, because it's not like you were going to ask women to write essays or, or, like that would be like the natural way to communicate, is like, get together with a bunch of other women and talk about your life, And so it just became, it was like a natural approach to what we wanted to do, what we were trying to do. So that was, and as I say, like you always gather so much more information than you can really work with. And so in the end, we just gathered like sort of a representative from the different, groups that we focused on, and and did like included in some of the stories in the book.
Do you think that this whole process, which sounds so beautiful, did it change you?
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, like I mean, from the times of just even though like as activists, like we're always with the folks, and but just focusing in terms of women, and and what are the struggles. Our big code word became la lucha, the struggle, so and it's kind of like yeah, you have the struggle, but you'll get there, and also the sense of how you find God in the struggle. And so I had been also in El Salvador for a short period, when the war was going. And so, we would meet, and it was these horrible stories of, people's families killed, etc. Things that, like that's sadly are still happening. And I remember that the press would always ask, how can you believe in God when this has happened? When after the experience you had, how can you believe in God? And the response consistently was, God didn't do it. God was with us. God gave us the strength to survive it, like God, it's like it was so clear, like I always used to be amazed at, like it was, like very, like humble people, and just saying to the press, well, God is with us, God's not, like God is with us, and has not abandoned us. And so like in terms of the, like just the, like it had to, it was a deepening, I'd say, of my faith for sure, with those kinds of experiences.
It sounds like, besides being a spiritual experience for everybody involved, that there was healing in being able to tell. I think whenever we were able to tell our stories, yes, and have somebody listen with love and compassion. Was that your experience?
I think it was, to a great extent, like, I don't know that, you can document it, but that certainly, like, at the, through those experiences, that you go away after 2 days, you go away feeling lighter, feeling lighter and feeling more, what would I say? I mean, this is what we'd hear from the women, of that, like at the end, that, like I feel lighter, I feel accompanied. Yeah. I feel more myself, and so I think that the experience by itself was a good thing. And what it is a praxis, it's like it was, the praxis, was happening, like people were, the experience was more than just insights,
Yeah. Huh. It sounds really, really very, very beautiful. It also sounds like something that you've carried in your heart this whole time, all these years later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the work that you do now, and if you see any connections between that experience of that year and a half and the direction your life has taken.
Right. Well, Ada and I, like after the book, then continued, working together, and, like articles and talks and presentations, that kind of thing, especially after the book was published. But the big challenge was really, what do we do about going on in academic theology? And so, I had, like I said, I had done the MDiv before, and my whole goal was really to be inserted in the community. That was my, my goal. And so I didn't want to be, I wanted to keep doing theology, but I didn't want to be an academic. And the same was true of Ada. In fact, I found an article that I didn't know I had it, that she had written. And so, I mean, it's an old article, the paper's all yellowed and stuff, but just to quote from her article, she says, "I have always considered myself first and foremost an activist, but for me, reflection is intrinsic to being an activist, and therefore I see no major split or contradiction between being an activist and being a theologian. What I do reject is being called an academic theologian. Two things are very clear to me. My community of accountability is not the academic community. My community of accountability is the community in which I participate in the liberation struggle because I belong to it. And then, goes on to, secondly, I do not consider it necessary to back what I say with quotes from other theologians or to engage theologians just because they have published their ideas. So I think that both of us have always dealt with that struggle about, can you be an activist and an academic? And saying you can't, but you can be an activist and a theologian. And that's the difference. And so for me, I came after finishing my MDiv, I had come to the Mexican American Cultural Center, where I was director of a program for people preparing to work in Hispanic ministry. But that was only a couple of years. And a couple of sad years, because it was like working within the church, where your voice doesn't count. And so I was very disillusioned, and I figured I was going to work with women. So at that time in San Antonio, we were just beginning to experience the growth of homelessness, the changing face of homelessness. We were experiencing with whole families, etc. So another sister and myself decided to open a house for homeless women with young children. And so our goal was, we really wanted like a more Dorothy Day kind of, focus of hospitality. And so our goal was hospitality, not to be a shelter, but to be a place that could offer hospitality. So we were able to get a loan from the congregation, and we bought this big old rambling old mansion, and not the greatest shape, but good bones. And so anyway, so we moved in and, just put the word out, and, soon, people came, it was just like, can I, do you have a bed? I was living with my sister, and we had a fight, and she threw me out, and my kids and I have been sleeping in our car for the last 3 nights, or, I was in a shelter and my 30 days were up, and I don't know where else to go. And I've got 2 children, so, so it was all, like all the regular, and so we received people in the house, and our whole goal was to live with them so that we could have a better understanding of what the needs were, because we felt like we're all so good, and our government's so good about deciding what people need. And that may not be what they want or what they believe they need, It's like, we think they need that. So,
in a way, an extension of the work you had done, because you were really listening.
Right, exactly. So this is, so we started, so we did that. And so eventually, and I lived there, we started in 1985, and I just moved out of there in 2020. So I lived there for 35 years. And so, so it was, and see, part of the thing, one of the things that's always been important to me is, what would I say? It's like, make your talk walk, it's like, I don't want to just preach about things if I haven't been there. And so, so anyway, so so we evolved from, we're receiving people, it's hospitality. And then, realizing, the shelter system was so broken, because it's, you can get 15 days or 20 or 30, whatever, and then there's nothing, and in that amount of time, you can't do anything. So then we kind of moved to, you can stay here as long as you need to until you go to permanent housing. But you've got to be working on your, on it. You can't just sit back. So for most of them, permanent housing was public housing. And so it's waiting for, public housing to call them, Section 8, of course, was at that point, like years away. So it was the housing projects. And then while they were waiting, realized that so many of them had dropped out of high school and didn't have a GED. Drove but didn't have a driver's license, that kind of thing. So we started working on, okay, while you're waiting to get your housing, let's work on these short-term goals. Let's get this done. And it was very empowering for the women, so, I never thought I'd get my GED, but I always thought I was dumb, is what they'd always say, that I didn't do well in school, and I was like probably more distracted than, than anything. So, so anyway, and then from there we evolved into, we bought an apartment building and started a transitional housing program focused on education, because again, what's the key for women? It's education. Education is the best shield against poverty, and especially for women. And so, then, you know, the women could enter the program and first of all, GED, and we did the GED in-house so we could do it faster. And then community colleges, and insisted on it had to be college, you know, not the, you know, all those programs in dental hygiene or whatever, you know, that they do, and they take their Pell Grants and they never finish.
Right.
So, and just the whole thing about college felt like, oh, I'm going to college, you know, how, you know, like I never thought I could. So, so anyway, so that the program's still going. I moved out in 2020. And the reason is just that, you know, wanting an injection of new blood, you know, and other people to move it forward. And
I just want to say that the way you put it, you said, you know, and we got a loan and we bought this house and it was dilapidated and we fixed it up and then we bought an apartment. You say it so casually. This is a lot of work and a lot of vision.
And a lot of years.
And a lot of grit. And I just want to say, you know, you're very humble, but that's amazing what you accomplished.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And so then the connection with Ada, is that Ada felt the same way. Like Ada felt like she came alive when she was in Peru and working with the poor. And, you know, what a gift. Like she just felt like if there was any part of my life I want to repeat, it's, you know, the years, you know, that I worked in Peru with the very poor, etc. So it was really difficult for her to go on for the PhD in theology. And I have to say, I pushed her every bit of the way, because we needed it. You know, we needed, you know, a voice like hers. We needed a voice like hers, and we needed the kind of, you know, she was a, you know, the kind of discipline, you know, to do the work, you know, that she had. And so she'd always, you know, oh, are you sure? Do you think I should go? Because she felt like a traitor if I go into academic theology. And it's like, it's not a traitor. It's like, it's a service to me, and to all the women that we, you know, that we want to help, you know, and that we, you know, that we have worked with. And so I felt like all along I was like pushing, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. Stay with it. You know, like we need someone like you, having a voice in the academy. And so even though, like I say, to the end, you know, she was fighting being an academic theologian, but the fact is, she did gain a voice in the academy, and by gaining that voice, she brought all of us in. And even though, you know, like the two of us came up with the concept of mujerista theology. Yes. And the idea was, and we borrowed it from our African-American sisters who were doing womanist theology, but we felt like we needed we needed to claim it as ours. And the way we came up with the name mujerista is because mujer is woman in Spanish. And so much of the, you know, with the women, whenever we gained, there was a lot of power in that word. It says, you know, nosotros las mujeres vamos a hacer, you know, so it was kind of like, it was there like, you know, we the women, you know, and so many of the songs, you know, the sort of like the battle songs that, you know, the Hispanic women were always about la mujer, you know, and the power of la mujer, and la mujer is going to do this and stuff. So that's where we came up with the term, you know, of calling it mujerista theology. And I think with mujerista theology, the whole goal for us was getting it going, and then Ada developed some of it. But the idea is really for it to continue to, you know, for theologians, younger, you know, new people to continue developing it. And so I'm always thrilled when I meet, like some of the, younger Latina theologians, asking about it and, and really hoping that they'll delve more into it. So with Mujerista theology, we had developed this, kind of initial, definition of saying, Mujerista theology is a Latina liberation theology. That's, that's what we were headed for. That was, like the context we were in. And saying Mujerista theology is a liberative praxis, reflective action oriented towards the liberation of Latina women. Our goal is to empower Latinas to understand the oppressive structures that influence our lives, to define a preferred future, to recognize their own participation in the system and work against internalizing their own oppression, and to impact mainline theologies. So it was like the two goals is empower Latinas and impact mainline, theologies. And so, this is, like also saying Mujerista theology insists on 3 commitments. To do theology, recognizing that the source of theology is life, its questions and concerns, and that to do theology is a communal process. And I think that's where like our process kind of led us to that commitment, that doing theology is not one person in their room having lofty thoughts, which of course we know, in all liberation theology like that, but that it, to do that theology is a communal process, and to embrace it and engage it. And to do theology from to do theology is a communal process from a specific perspective, that, it's, we don't have to be global. We can do theology from a specific perspective and a specific engagement, etc. So, so anyway, so, we had started, I think besides Ada, there wasn't anybody else like really, like picking it up in terms of writing. I don't, that I'm aware of, it was like she was really the main spokesperson for, or the main person, talking about or calling herself a Mujerista theologian. Other Latina theologians actually, had a problem with it, so, they felt like it was more too specific maybe, or whatever. I don't know what the issue was, but it wasn't, like really embraced by other Latina theologians. The very few that there were, I think now, wonderfully, there are a lot more young women in theology, which, like I'm, happy to have, like, I felt like, with Las Hermanas, we felt like Las Hermanas and the work that we did was hopefully a seedbed for the future of theology among Latinas,
It was kind of like a baton that you were handing, and then for other people to finish the race.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
well, we'll wind down for questions if that's okay with you. But I just wanted to ask you two things. What guidance would you give to young Latinx women scholars and theologians today?
Oh, don't stray from the community. It's like stick close to the, to the community and the lived experience of Latinas. And like it's find a way to stay immersed in that reality.
As I said, we've known each other for 20 years. And when I first met you, and I recognized right away, and I recognized it again tonight, you are so filled with joy and love and the Spirit of God. And it's really, really an honor to listen to you.
That's a wonderful compliment. Thank you.
I can't thank you enough. And we'll open it up, if that's okay, to everyone to ask any questions. You can write them in the chat, or you can voice them, whatever you'd like, whatever you feel comfortable with. We have somebody in the chat who might add a question.
Stone.
Somebody said that that they were inspired by Ada. Grateful to connect with all of you and honoring the theology from Latinas voices in the work of Ada and Yolanda. Oh, that's lovely. Did somebody write a question in the chat also?
There's a hand up, Kath Stone.
Is there a hand up?
I mean, I see the little hand.
Oh, you do? I don't, why do I just not?
You don't see it.
Anybody want to
Kath
jump
is
in?
muted.
Oh, okay, that's probably it. Yes, you're right, it is muted. Mhm. And it might have been an accident, not maybe.
You know how Zoom is. You know how Zoom is.
I have a question.
Hi, Pam. Thank you.
Hi.
Mhm.
Hola, Yolanda. It's so great to see you.
That's right.
I was so grateful to get the note about this conversation. I'm wondering if I don't know how many other folks here already know about the institute named in Ada's honor, but I would appreciate learning a little bit, if it wouldn't be, repeat information for everybody else, learning a little bit about what the hopes and dreams are for the institute and how it got started and who's helping to bring it to life.
Well,
and how we all might support it.
Oh, thank you for that question. Well, Tracy and Francisco have been really instrumental in taking this idea and turning it into a reality. But this is the real scoop. I think I told this to you, Yolanda, and I know Tracy knows this. In 2021, I started hearing I sometimes get messages at night, and the message was, do something for Ada. And I ignored it. And then it happened again. And then the third time I was like, okay. And the same thing, do something for in Ada's memory. And then I realized that she had died this was the end of 2021, that she had died in 2012, that 2022 was the 10th anniversary of her passing. Mm-hmm. And so I called Tracy and I said, what do you think about this? And she's been by my side the whole time. And we had lots of conversations, and we brought together a group of people to kind of brainstorm about it. And Melanie was part of the initial conversation. So glad that you're here tonight, and really guided us. And the idea is to be a forum for young or emerging and older, anybody who's doing Latinx women's theology, and to teach women. For example, we're going to have some workshops in the summer for women in Hartford to learn the process, the ethnographic process, and then to go out and interview Latinx women and capture their stories. And ultimately, the goal would be to take that material and turn it into a book and into a theater piece. Because Charter Cultural Center is a multicultural art center, so we're very focused on the arts, and we want to make that a part of this. So the idea is to, keep Ada's memory alive, but also, and her work alive, but also to look at where it's going, what it's become, and all the exciting things that people are doing that they might not be exposed to normally. So that, because through this institute, we hope that academics and the general public will come together to learn about this.
Great. Mm-hmm.
Does that make any questions about what I just said? Is that kind of clear? Yeah. Good. Okay. Any other questions? Yolanda, would you, your relationship with Ada was so amazing. I was a witness to it, just the love between you and the joy and the laughter. Do you have a favorite memory of Ada?
Oh, that's good. Well, like we were saying earlier, Ada, English was a second language. And so she would sometimes mix things up, or, say, different, can't think of any of them specifically right now, but there were so many that she would say, says, no, Ada, what are you trying to say? You know, but really Ada was a force of nature, and her just ability to, you know, like you could give her an idea and, you know, in 15 minutes she was developing it, you know. And so it was, you know, like just such a privilege for me to have met up with her. And we did a lot of fun and exciting things. And she always claimed that since, you know, she's a big woman and she was rough, etc. And so she always claimed that, oh, people think I'm the tough one, you know. Because it would be, because really, I mean, I remember one memory now that just came to me. In the Catholic Church, they did, there was a thing called, oh, what was it called, for Hispanics, and an encuentro, the encuentros. So then there had been a first encuentro that was just full of life, and, you know, it was like you're expecting 500 people and you get 800, and, you know, that kind of thing. And so then another one was planned. So then, you know, kind of the bishops caught on to the idea, this is a good idea. And so this is something that then gets picked up by the clergy to have to bring Hispanics together, etc. So we came together, and of course we were there, Ada and I, and Las Hermanas, you know, lobbying for women. So then there were several areas, and, you know, they were, you know, brought forth, and, you know, we were at the National Shrine in Washington, D.C. and, you know, they, you know, this group proposes this or that, and everybody would chime in and agree. But when they brought the one about, you know, that we want to work towards women serving at all levels of ministry, they wouldn't accept it. And so it was turned down. So the women were just horrified, you know, like a lot of the women from the parishes had, you know, really gone with their pastors and trusted them. And then they were voting against them, you know, they just couldn't, you know. So it became like a big uprising. It looked like a big demonstration was, you know, was going to happen. So anyway, and it was very difficult. And so Ada sitting there crying, you know, it's like, Ada, stop crying. We should be strategizing. Stop crying. What are we going to do next? You know? So, you know, what I said about, so anyway, the long and the short of it is that we, all the women gathered then afterwards, and you know, the women were saying, we ought to go get our bed sheets and throw them over every statue of Mary, because that's what's going on. So what we did in the end is the following day, we decided to meet at the front steps of the church and pray the rosary. Like, you know, who can arrest you for praying the rosary? So we had, you know, like a big demonstration, but in between each one, telling stories of women and how women are oppressed, but etc. And so, so it was really, you know, and you know, like with Ada, you know, it was like, you know, like she was so powerful, you know, she'd get up there and say, you know, this is what we need to do, you know. So, so it was, so I think, you know, like her commitment was so strong, you know, that she'd give herself, like, you know, like the night before she was sitting there crying, you know, the next day she was like at the front of the line, you know. So it was just, I learned a lot from her, and I enjoyed my time with her very much.
Thank you for that. You know, I realized too, I should explain why I got that message about Ada. She was my dissertation advisor.
Oh, okay.
And so I worked very closely with her, and I developed in my dissertation, I developed a method for doing Jewish feminist ethics that's based on the method in Mujerista theology. And also based on Katie Cannon's work in womanist theology. So, you know, I'm very connected to Ada in many ways.
Right.
Any other questions? Yolanda, thank you so much. It is really it's been such a gift to be with you tonight. And I learned so much, and besides learning so much, I feel like my heart just expanded exponentially just from being in your presence.
Well, thank
So
you. Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you so much.
A pleasure to be able to remember her.
Yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank
See
you all.
To meet you.
Thank
Hope to
you
meet
all for
in person
coming.
someday. Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. This was so inspiring. Cannot say that strongly enough. Thank you so much. And to you, Donna, as well, for being the powerhouse to make this happen. Really,
Mhm.
really appreciate it. And I'm with you, Carol, that my name is Tracy. I worked with Ada for over a decade, and your name and your presence were invoked many,
All
many,
the time.
times. But what you have given us tonight is such a gift to help us expand in the ways in which we think and know, and also are committed to creating this kind of gender justice transformation in church and society, and being accountable to the women. Thank you so much. Phenomenal.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a suggestion if you've not thought about it, Donna?
Sure, Pam.
Carol, Elmira and I are learning all about archiving and the need, particularly for BIPOC women, to archive their work because no one else is going to offer to do that. And I'm just wondering, I know you didn't get all of Yolanda's conversation with us tonight, but you got a chunk, whether you've thought at all about the tape that you've made tonight with Yolanda's reflections and any conversations you've had with Tracy and Melanie and Francisco, and donating it to Union or some other location to help continue to build out the memory and the reflections on who Ada was and the kind of significance she brought to the world. Anyways, just a thought.
No, I love that. Here's what we're going to do with the recording. It's going to go up on we send out a blast. Charter Oak sends out a blast every, it seems like every day. It's pretty frequent, but the video will be available and by next week, and then it'll be in our archive. But if you want to suggest people that we should send it to, we'd be happy to do that, because this is I think this is the third event. Is this the third event in the Institute? Yeah, it is. It's the third event. It's the first one for 2023. So we have the recordings. So we'd be happy to share them.
Where are all of Ada's papers? Are they at Union or Drew or?
You know, I was grateful you raised that question, because actually I don't know. Her family claimed everything.
Oh,
And
wow.
and they had said that they had a house that's kind of like a vacation place that the whole family used, and that they would dedicate a room to that, and they would take all her books, etc. I want to assume that her papers, etc., have already been given to someplace for archiving, but I don't know. But that motivates me to investigate.
I would strongly urge you. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't know if talking to a chief librarian or archivist at Drew, at Union,
Maybe perhaps at Union.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So if I don't have contact with her family, but with but I'll try to investigate, because I'm almost positive that they would have donated, or at least are planning to donate to a library, for archiving. But I mean, that should be just a given. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I think at least we're learning we should not assume.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely.
I actually, I asked Mr. Google, and they're at Columbia University.
And it's at Columbia? Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
It's an
Wonderful.
archive of her papers from 1966 to 2007.
Wow.
And they have a finding aid, they have a small précis, so
Mhm.
they're
Ah.
there.
Great. Thank you for checking.
And
that.
so that means union, because that's how it gets to Columbia.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I wanted to tell you that we're going to do these workshops, as I mentioned, in August, and then we're going to have our next lecture in November. So please sign up for our newsletter and you'll see when all these things are happening. And the other thing I wanted to say, which I didn't think I was going to say, but there's no reason not to. If you have any ideas about fundraising, we need money to do all these things. And we'd like to actually hire a director for the Ada Maria Isasi-Diaz Justice Institute, and a playwright and an author to put the material together in the book and play in the play form. So if you have any ideas, we're very open to anything that you have to suggest. So
Great. Well, thank you.
everyone, blessings to you. Thank you so much for being here. It was lovely to be in your company. And
Thank you.
Yolanda,
Pleasure
bravo.
to see you all.
Keep up your very, very wonderful and important work.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.